There's nothing more thrilling than nailing an insurance company.
And the truth shall set you free!
I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
Great moments are born from great opportunity.
Welcome, everybody, to a special edition of the On Justice podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Fischer Redavid. Joining me today is John Fischer, my law partner and co-host. Today's a special episode because it's our 1 year anniversary of the podcast.
1 year, we made it. We survived. We're still here making podcast episodes. Look at that.
Well, we've learned a lot more than I would have ever gathered. I thought this would be a lot more straightforward and easy to do and manage, but as the nature of things is, it becomes a lot more complicated the deeper you go in.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a lot more in depth. And really, we got to give a shout out to Justin. I know he's the man behind the curtain. Helps us out setting up all the technical details, artistry, that great intro that we had. And so, we've really progressed to a point that, we've got a good thing going, and even when he did the remote episodes when we were in Vegas and things like that. So his creativity has allowed us to, provide enjoyable content for the listeners. So we want to thank Justin for that.
I appreciate the shout out.
And speaking of listeners, I want to thank all the listeners. Anybody who's ever, tuned in, even if it was just for one episode, it means a lot to us. We take the time out to do this, honestly, with the hopes that we can entertain and inform. And you have a lot of choices out there to listen to, even if you're trying to listen to lawyers talk, which I don't know why the fuck you'd ever want to do that, but you happen to be doing that now if you're listening to this. So even in that realm, you've got a lot to choose from. And so we hope you find it interesting.
Yeah, I still want to know who our Belgium listeners are. That's Belgium, right? So look, if you're listening to this, drop a comment, say, hey, it's me, because I see it, and obviously sometimes I feel like we don't necessarily have an international presence, but, the podcast hopefully reaches people in different places, and, maybe it's just somebody traveling or what, but, that's to our Belgium individuals out there, or someone who's using a Belgium VPN. I particularly use Toronto as my location, but yeah, it's a good thing. So we want to hear from you guys, and look, like, really, we try to come up with different things, different topics, different ideas, what's trending, various guests. We've done a variety of different things, whether it's talking about cases, talking about what to do, how to better yourself, and I think, so really it's anything that you guys want to know about or talk about or hear about, just really let us know, because we're, we obviously come up with ideas ourselves. We have things we can talk about because we are active trial lawyers, so that helps. Obviously not on this episode, but we just had the case where we won against McDonald's and the little girl that was disfigured by the hot chicken nugget. So, we're going to have an episode talking about that, So it's good to have that, I think it shows, one, we work, we do what we say. We're not just talking about it, we're about it. Don't talk about it, be about it. I mean, I think that's what kind of where we are. And so this podcast is just an opportunity for us to share that with everyone. And so if you want to know something more, or want us to deep dive on a topic, man, just let us know. I think we're all game for that.
Yeah, when we started this, I think we had a lot more guest spots than we have as of late. And I think we're going to try and turn that meter back up, because as much as, we can share our own insights, I think it's important for the audience and frankly for us as a host. I mean, I learn from other people, There's never been an original thought in this business. People long before we ever got here probably figured it all out, and we're reinventing the wheel. So to the extent we can have on like titans of the industry, like the Joe Freeds that we had on earlier, or Ross Guberman, basically the nation's preeminent legal writing expert, these kinds of guests, I think there's tremendous value not only for our audience, but for us. And so I know Justin's working hard on getting some guests lined up. I think we should revert back to that periodically.
Yeah, dude, how about, look, without this, I wouldn't have had an opportunity to even know who David Marcus was, but my God.
Yeah, and just got that Andrew Gillum favorable verdict.
And they dismissed the remaining charges.
That's right.
With a 10-2.
Yeah, I mean, if he's not the GOAT of white-collar criminal defense, I don't know who is. And I say that full well knowing that even in the South Florida legal community, not even having to go outside of it, there's a bunch of just absolute monsters and crushers. But I think David Marcus and his partner, they're the best. I just dollars to donuts, their results speak for themselves, and in very high profile, high stakes litigation, they just always seem to have the edge. And so shout out to David for taking the time a couple of months back
Yeah.
to be on our podcast.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that, I don't know, I've always been like, if you're in federal court, you lose. Like, right? You don't get discovery. You're behind the ball. And we kind of talked about this with David. And for me, like, to have someone that of his caliber trains judges, like a legal mind, a savant, all of those things, the qualities, and an exceptional trial lawyer, which I don't know. I feel like, Jordan has the blend of those qualities, right? He's a great trial lawyer. He's also an intellect, an appellate guy. Me, man, I'm just a dumb man of the people. I'm up there like, will someone please talk to me?
No.
Um,
We don't. Neither of us belong in the David Marcus class, but for a limited window of an hour, a couple months ago, we all belonged on the same podcast, and I'm very grateful for him giving us that opportunity. And if you haven't listened to that, maybe Justin could drop the link in the show notes. You should definitely check out that episode. That's just a good person through and through, who also happens to be a phenomenal lawyer. I guess that brings up a good point. What was your favorite guest that we've had on thus far?
Oh man, honestly, so like the people I really enjoy. So I really loved having Joe Freed on, talking with him, just because like the qualities of like Joe Freed. Joe Freed is, I mean, he has done so much for the industry, but then he takes the time to really, help others. Like even me as a young lawyer, I sent him an email and like I had a question, and he's like responding, as busy as he is and everything. And this was even before he was on the podcast. So for him to take the time to sit down with us, obviously we're a younger, growing podcast. For him to come on, I thought was, exceptional, because Joe's a really good person, and I think, the qualities that I hope to instill in my kids and all this, and even as trial lawyers, is just be a good person, right? Like David Marcus is a good person, and I think what you find is that, when I used to think as trial lawyers, we had to be assholes, right? Like you're in the, rah, rah. Like that's this kind of perception that it had to be.
That's a litigator. I don't want to be viewed as that.
Well, right, but so having those, like that, him on, to really kind of, be that, help us do that, I thought that was really great. And then I do think that David Marcus episode, I mean, I don't know. I thought that was excellent. So,
yeah. I mean, we've had some other it's interesting. So like we've had a lot of guest spots. I feel very fortunate for that. Two of them that stand out to me are mostly because of what they've done for the legal community at large. They just happen to take some time out to talk to us. So like, obviously in a short podcast episode, you can't delve into it, but like we had Tiffany on, the founder of Jury X. That company has changed our lives as a practice. It's changed the lives of a handful of our clients who've been fortunate enough to have their people, like Mary and Marta, come down and be jury consultants. But also we've had Ross Guberman came on. I mean, this is somebody who's teaching federal judges how to write.
Yeah.
Teaching, some of the best law firms and lawyers in America how to write. Clearly, you and I haven't learned enough, but I mean, he's a best-selling author with, point made, point taken. And then like for me, just on like the day in, day out, you want to talk about utility and really helping your practice. He developed the brief catch add-in for Word. And I mean, I don't know where that train ends, what the final station is, but I think it's going to end in a ton of wealth for him, and he deserves it, because anybody who uses that add-in, their legal writing abilities just 10x'd overnight, the ability to edit, word choice, be more concise, etc. So those were also interesting to me. But yeah, I'm with you on Joe. I'm with you on David. Frankly, everybody we've had on.
Yeah, and even like look, we had Ray from our office, Keela from our office, Zach Bodenheimer, a good friend of ours, came on the show. Local hitters. Obviously, some are internal to the firm, but for them to share their their experience. For instance, Ray, after he got that not guilty on the attempted first-degree murder charge,
Right.
or maybe it was second-degree murder, one of the two. But he got a not guilty, and to describe that, the transition from criminal to civil, because a lot of our, yourself included, you start criminal and go to civil. So I thought that was a good episode and guest for me, because I got to learn. I only went straight civil, right? no one would give me an interview. So to see the transition from you guys to go from criminal, you're behind the ball, you're doing kind of what the defense does now. You're creating that doubt, that seed of doubt to get your client off, and how to kind of transitioning that to the other side where now we have the burden. So I thought those were, I like those episodes as well.
Yeah, I'd like to cast a wider net too as we move forward. I'm looking at our podcast the same way I'm looking at our firm. Day one through year one of our firm, and now we're years later. I mean, looking back, it's hard to believe the growth we've had, and I hope to feel the same way years from now looking back on this podcast. So I'm proud of what we've done, but I'm also excited about the opportunity for some additional things we can do with the podcast, and especially when it comes down to guests. We could reach out to people who practice areas of law that we don't, immigration, business, whatever, even people within the personal injury realm, but who do things that we don't, like mass torts and things like that. So I'm going to work hard to get some good lineup of guests. And, David Marcus's podcast, I think, does a really good job with that, by the way, for the defense. He's got on people who have accomplished some tremendous things. And I want to make sure we continue to do the same for our audience. So
for sure.
Have we had Terry on, Justin? Speaking of internal guests like Ray and Keela, have we had him on yet?
No, we've done the we've tried to do the monthly reviews or the Terry's takes and all that. That's the most we've done, but we should definitely have him on. He's definitely a good guest to have.
Yeah, we need to get Terry on to talk about appeals, because I do think there's a natural synergy between trial lawyers and appellate lawyers. And I don't think you can be exceptional at either role without an appreciation of the other. So, look, even Ray worked in appeals with Howard Blumberg, who, shout out to the Miami-Dade PD's office. Ray had a stint over there. I had a stint over there in the appellate division as a CLI, working with Harvey Sepler, who we also had on.
Right, I was going to say, I was just thinking that Harvey came on, and we're in there talking about preservation and appellate, because we're obviously preservation is one of the most important things. So that was a good,
Yeah, so we got to do that again. But I just wanted to make sure we locked in this episode. Thanks for Justin for making sure we earmarked the time. And to everybody out there, stay tuned. There's going to be a lot more fun and engaging content out there. And if you haven't, we're really trying to make more of a concerted effort, even beyond this podcast, on our social media channels. So whether it's TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, whatever, make sure to follow all our handles that Justin's going to put in the show notes, because we also try and keep you up to date there too. So
go ahead and just wrap it up at this point. You guys got, I think that's about it. All right.
Wait, hold on a second, since we're now off top. That's it? 12 minutes?
Yeah, about.
Yeah. What else are we going to do?
Yeah, that's about it. Growing social media plans going forward. I don't know if you want to talk about what's going on in our lives.
Hold up. Yeah, so obviously, Jordan talked about social media. We're going to be growing that. And interesting enough, as everyone has enjoyed this podcast room where I sit on a yearly basis, we're actually getting ready to leave this office end of next month. Kind of a new chapter. We're going to probably be going to remote for a while. May not have an office, might have a little office. And then we're ultimately hoping to get another space and secure a nice podcast room. It'll be like the Joe Rogan experience, have somebody in there. I'll have a deprivation chamber down there so I can get ready and, get all those guys, hyped for the podcast when we have an in-person guest. But no, so moving forward, this next year is going to be, we're going to see tremendous growth. We've got a ton of trials coming up, ton of trials to talk about. I got one going next week in the Virgin Islands with a traumatic brain injury case, my first case in the Virgin Islands. So, stay tuned. We're going to share those experiences for you, and hopefully you can learn from myself, Jordan, our guests, and, to better not just yourself, but your practice. And I think at the end of the day, that's what we all want, is to do better, to be better, and help us all grow and, help our clients in the meantime. All right. So thanks for tuning in, everyone. Short anniversary episode. Stay tuned. Next episode is going to be, we're going to talk about the McDonald's hot chicken nugget case, how that happened, why it happened, and why everyone in the comments is completely wrong with their negative, stereotypes that this is the hot coffee case, or it's not the hot coffee case, because this one's even more frivolous. But we'll explain why it's not next episode. So stay tuned.
1, 2, 3, 4.
There's nothing more thrilling than nailing an insurance company.
And the truth shall set you free!
I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
Great moments are born from great opportunity.